What's up, guys? Today's video is going to be on which exercises contributed the most to each muscle group for me. But before I get into it, I'm just going to tell the story of why I'm doing this. A while back, over the summer, I made a post, transformation post on Instagram showing just how my physique changed over 3 years. Got a really good response, but one of the comments in response was from Pete Trains, and he asked me to do a post on which exercises contributed the most to each muscle group for me. And I said, that's a great idea. Remind me if I don't get around to it. Man, these guys reminded me. They were on it. So I'm going to give a shout out to all these guys because they just kept reminding me and kept reminding me. And like finally, I'm actually going to do it while it's on the top of my head so I don't forget again. Because it's a great idea. But I was kind of overthinking like, okay, are we talking about which exercises contributed the most recently overall? You know, I was making it into more than it had to be and also thinking about how I'm going to fit it into an Instagram post. We're not going to do that. We're just going to make it a YouTube video. But real quick, I want to shout out all these guys. This was 30 weeks ago this post happened. He made that comment, and I told him to remind me if I didn't get around to it. Pete came back like 3 weeks later, reminded me. 420 J-Rod reminded me like 14 weeks ago. Diego Will Welton also reminded me 7 weeks ago. Ivan Isn't Real reminded me 6 weeks ago. Bill Joe Baggins, that's clever, reminded me 5 weeks ago. Again, yeah. And then finally, David Kennedy just got around to reminding me again. So these guys have been on it, so I really need to just get this video out there for you guys. Sorry to make you guys wait. I was overthinking in my head. I'll tell you I'm going to do this in a second, but in the meantime, just everybody's on here. Big thank you to these guys for making this video happen, and make sure to do all the YouTube algorithm stuff to make sure that this goes somewhere. Okay, anyway, thank you. So what I'm going to do is just go from head to feet in order, and I'm not going to put any strict rules on myself like which exercises, how many exercises it can be, or what time frame. I'm just going to tell you the most important exercises for each of my muscle groups in a fairly loose format, just whatever makes the most sense in context. So let's start from the head down. That brings us to my neck. So I had a fairly decent neck just from doing judo back when I was in high school. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't small. It wasn't a pencil neck. So I kind of let it sit for a long time, didn't do anything. At a certain point, I built up, my traps and everything else to the point where I looked a little bit silly not to just have a bigger neck. So the exercises that contributed most were neck curls. I started off doing them in a neck harness, and then I switched to doing biting neck curls, just looping a weight through a band and just looping it through a towel, biting on that. Same exact thing as the harness, but it's just quicker, and neck's a workout that I try to get done really quick in like limited time windows, usually like when my wife's putting the kids to bed. So just doing the neck curls with plates, biting on the on a towel, doing neck curls that way, and then also doing banded neck rotations, I guess you would say, and then doing like the plate curls with the plate on the head. I don't know how better to describe that. And those put about an inch on my neck. I went from about 16 to about 17 between last year and this year. More so last year, but I'm continuing to make gains this year. Anyway, so that's pretty simple. But bottom line, if you train your neck, you're probably going to grow. Okay, so that brings us to traps, probably my best body part. My initial trap work was mostly power cleans. That was actually my first pull from the floor. Deadlifts weren't as popular back when I got into this stuff. Not everybody deadlifted. They weren't as common. I didn't deadlift till I think, or at least not seriously, until probably my third year of lifting, maybe the end of my third year of lifting. So my first pull from the floor was power cleans, and that built me up a pretty decent base. Built on it with some deadlifts after that. But obviously, once I got into power shrugs, they exploded into, the mountains that I'm known for having. Some controversy over the shrugs supposedly aren't great for the mid traps. I disagree. I think that the power shrugs that I'm doing work perfectly fine for my middle traps. I don't think it's just my upper traps alone that are making that appearance happen. But anything that power shrugs don't handle, I think Zerchers more than handle. I mean, they're getting all kind of retraction and whatnot. And then as far as lower traps, it's not really I say they're not counted in traps because they're not part of the look of big traps. You know, you don't see somebody from the front, you're not going to see their lower traps. But obviously, I'm not saying neglect the muscle group. It's just kind of it's called trap, but it's not really that much more connected to the look than, say, you know, your rhomboids, right? But anyway, I think overhead work, just doing a lot of heavy overhead work, really helps with that. I think Xerxes and Jefferson curls play a big role, and then obviously also rows. We'll stay kind of up here, I guess. We'll go into shoulders. Obviously, got started with push-ups. Makes sense. Initially, I didn't have that much success with strict press. I felt like for me, I had to build kind of a base of strength with jerks. You know, the push press went nowhere in terms of, or the strict press rather, went nowhere in terms of progression for me until I built a foundation of jerks. So, you know, clean and jerks, and then some behind the neck jerks helped to build kind of a base of strength. I think the behind the neck jerks contributed to the traps as well as to my side delts as well. Once I built a good enough base of strength, I was able to get into strict press, and I think that really built the majority of my size. Just, you know, not as much, you know, working up the really heavy weight. That's one where I got more out of just trying to push the weight rather than high reps, which is not usual for me. Usually high reps work better, but on on strict press, chasing weight really worked well for me. And then I would say I got a lot out of seated overhead press. Now, I only did this for a very brief period in my lifting career because that was the only time that I was at a place that had a good seated overhead press bench, because a lot of them, the seat back is way too high, so you can't lean back, like your head is trapped and you can't really get out of the way. That's awkward. I was never able to use those effectively. But if you get one that lets you kind of lean back over the upright a little bit so that you can get your head out of the way, you can kind of make it almost a really high incline, and that worked extremely well for me. I was doing fairly high reps with 225, 285 for singles. Not saying it was like a complete overhead press. I was making into essentially a high incline, like I'm sure you've seen, but that worked really well for me. I think that added some width there. And then finally, I think just a lot of the heavy overhead lockout work that I've been doing, like Turkish get-ups, overhead walks, held behind the neck jerks, things of that nature, has contributed to the width of my side delts. I really feel them on those movements, and I think that's helped me to have fairly wide side delts. Now that's all been you know, front and side delts, which kind of work together. As far as rear delts, obviously foundation is pull-ups. I was doing pull-ups for heavy lifted weights, but those have been kind of lagging for a while. And what I've done to correct that, that's been really helpful, is wide grip rows. So I've been doing some of them in a seal row style, support on a bench. What I've been really liking recently is golden era style rows, which is where you're elevated, doing kind of deficit rows, like back bent all the way over, you know, torso angled downward rather than upward. You're just getting a full stretch. I've been doing those with a really wide snatch grip. That's been definitely helping my rear delts. I've also been doing just band pull aparts, but what I do is I make a loop in the band to shorten the length of it, and I'm just copying the technique that I've seen Alex Leonidas doing with his. Sorry about that. I had to adjust my camera. With his what do you call them? The chest expanders. The you know, the things with the springs that you pull apart. I need to get one of those, but I've been just combining multiple bands together to kind of mimic that, and that's been really helping. And then I've just been doing snatch grip deadlifts. I think that's been helping as well, combined with some side pullovers. I just posted those recently on Instagram. I got a fantastic stretch in the rear delt. So I've made a lot of progress recently on the rear delt, specifically using those items. I think Kelly snatches contributed some too there. So that pretty much covers the shoulder girdle. I guess next in line, let's just go to chest because that's easy. Obviously built the foundation with push-ups, just like probably anyone should. Push-ups and dips, and then obviously went in the gym and did bench press. A lot of bench press. That's kind of where my chest came from mostly. The one caveat I put there, the one kind of unique exercise that really helped me was decline bench. Decline bench got me through a big sticking point in flat bench and helped me break over 315 in flat bench, as well as put on a lot of size. So decline gets a special mention there. But those are the exercises that made the majority of my gains there. And then I think I've been making some gains recently in upper chest, and that's been mostly from decline push-ups, which are equivalent to like incline incline bench, but you're doing a push-up, so it's decline just on the ring, so I get a nice full stretch. That's been helpful there. Let's see, what order should we go? I guess going around the back, we end up with Teres majors. That's a pretty strong body part for me. I think they're pretty highly developed. I think honestly Erectors have played a huge role in those, because I always feel those like strongly engaged. I think those specifically contribute to that weird like bump look that you see. So Erectors are a big role there. I mean, obviously pull-ups are the foundation, but to be honest, just doing pull-ups, even weighted pull-ups, never really gave me any kind of V-taper whatsoever. They did the basics, but they didn't get me as wide as I am today. Adding in stuff like archer rows and archer pull-ups. Archer rows more for the rear delts. I should have mentioned them earlier. Archer pull-ups specifically help with the Teres majors, I think, and as well as a lot of pullover variations have helped with the Teres majors. And now today that's a pretty strong point for me. So I think between Erectors and just a good variety of pull-ups and pullovers, that's what's mostly contributed to that area. You get a little bit of extra work from Kelly snatch, but I don't think that was probably the make or break. Okay, what else do we have? Let's see. Let's work our way on down. I guess we're already on the back, so let's stay there. Lats, kind of the same boat. I mean, obviously the background there is pull-ups, but I definitely never had any notable lats just from pull-ups. I mean, mostly back in the day, what I was doing was, pull-ups, weighted pull-ups, and deadlifts, and I was kind of, I had some thickness, but I was not wide by any stretch of the imagination. So pull-ups alone, even weighted, weren't really getting me the width that I was looking for. I mean, part of that's just my build. I have wide shoulders, but also wide hips, so I'm just kind of built like a straight up and down person. That's always going to be the case. I don't have the narrow waist to have a good V taper, regardless. But anyway, still my training could obviously have been better, and it was. I'd always tried various types of rows back in the day, but I just never got a lot out of a lot of variations. I always felt frustrated with them, and so like the things that I always came back to were deadlifts and pull-ups, because I like those. I just never really felt rows the way that I wanted to back in the day. But anyway, let's get on to what actually made the most difference. Surprisingly, Romanian deadlifts. I know it's more of a hamstring exercise, but the way I do them, I'm really contracting my lats a lot, just to keep the stretch on the hamstrings, just to make sure that I'm not letting the spine round and take tension off the hamstrings. I actually get a lot out of Romanian deadlifts for lats. Definitely the same thing with Zercher style movements. Especially like the Zercher deadlift, I think I've really improved my lats significantly. I think for me, someone who never felt rows that well, I think that that definitely contributed a nice like heavy thing that you can really push hard on, that kind of trains in the kind of horizontal angle, in addition obviously to the vertical pulls. And as far as vertical pulls go, I think just changing the variations helped. Oddly enough, L-sit pull-ups I feel helped me a lot on my lats. It changes the angle just a little bit, and I'm not great at L-sits to this day, but you're getting some bonus hip flexor work. But the kind of underrated thing there is you are changing the angle up a little bit. I feel like that was more helpful. I also like to do them with a very close grip. I would just grip one ring, and I think that was helpful for making them more lat targeted. So what am I missing? Oh, and of course pullovers. I think pullovers are obviously extremely underrated for lats, and the more I learn about doing them effectively. The more I feel them in my lats, I'm feeling things that I've never felt before. So pullovers are definitely helping. But yeah, big things that have changed. Good Romanian deadlifts with good form. Lots of heavy Zercher style movements to failure, and then let's say pullovers. Yeah. So that's for lats. I guess we'll go ahead and do spinal erectors while we're at it. We already talked about Zerchers, but obviously Zerchers help, especially Zercher deadlifts are, good for building strong spinal erectors, but obviously the king here is the Jefferson curl. Once I started doing Jefferson curls, especially once I started training them with a fairly high intensity, my spinal erectors got crazy. I'm kind of known for that, and that's what it is. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, obviously the RDLs contribute. Now, obviously I built a base in my spinal erectors with power cleans and conventional deadlifts and squats like I mentioned with everything else, but you wouldn't know me from that level of development. They really skyrocketed when I started doing especially the Jefferson curls, but also Zerchers, especially Zercher deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts to an extent also. Let's move around to the other side of the torso. We're kind of working our way down in a somewhat sequential order. Serratus, biggest factors there were one-arm push-ups, Turkish get-ups, and pullovers. Moving down to abs, I had a good base from body weight exercises before I started lifting, Japanese sit-ups, a bunch of different body weight things. Then I built a lot more off of compounds, deadlifts, squats, especially Zercher squats, and especially one-hand deadlifts. Those help massively. And that contributed to pretty big abs. My abs are fairly sizable from that. I actually ended up having to do direct ab work, not for size, but for function. I was doing so much back work that I actually just needed to do direct ab work to counter it out functionally speaking. I was having some issues with bending forward just because the back muscles were too powerful for the ab muscles, and what really helped there was cross bench sit-ups, which are a lot like GHD sit-ups on a bench for that full stretch, and then L-sits and a band-assisted L-sit variation as well for the abs. As far as the obliques, the one-hand deadlifts were huge there. Also Zercher squats, and more recently side bends, bent press, and windmills, like barbell windmills. Those are obviously great for obliques. Now, before we move on any lower, I skipped the arms. What's the correct order to move down the body in? Who knows? Let's just go ahead and go through it. As far as biceps, obviously my base was built with chin-ups, and they did a lot. I built on that with actually straight barbell curls were very effective for me, as well as the easy bar with a close grip. Both of those were effective. The only problem was both of those just gave me really bad bicep tendonitis when I trained them hard and really progressed them. They were working. I just had to cut it out because I was getting upper bicep tendonitis really bad from those. I didn't understand how the rotator cuff worked at that point, so I didn't know to start training that. I just figured I couldn't do curls. So I stagnated for a while because I was trying to do all these lighter mind muscle connection exercises to try to avoid irritating that, and that did absolutely nothing, no matter how much volume I put into it, no matter how much mind muscle connection. What helped me pick back up and start growing them again was fixing that bicep tendonitis. Big shout out to Strange Grayson, who helped me deal with that with some isometrics, and then just getting some good full stretch movements that I could actually progress and grow with. Incline curls were huge there, as well as preacher curls, although I was doing a variation where I'm essentially squatted down, bracing the bar at my knees, doing essentially a preacher curl variation, just with my own body. I actually like it better than regular preacher curls, but it's basically a preacher curl. There's a video up on my channel if you want to see it. This is a very intense movement where you have kind of the stability and just emphasis on that stretched position at the bottom, but it's also extremely grindable, and you can really just force out some ugly reps on that. Very intense. That was helpful. As far as the triceps, base was built obviously with the push-ups and dips before lifting. Obviously close grip bench press and overhead were huge. I built a lot of size off of those. So that accounted for the bulk of my size. Up until recently, I've actually blown my triceps up over the last year. Hopefully you can see through the sweater. I think we can see, some of the gains through the sweater. What's been really helping there is incline French press. Now, I always knew that was a good movement for me. I could always tell that it worked. The problem was being able to do it consistently without elbow pain, which brings in really the key to this whole thing. And this is going to be a big shout out to Bald Omni-Man, Alex Leonidas, GBS, for bringing my attention the idea of doing dual rope pushdowns as kind of a feeder to just warm up your elbow and pump blood into it. That has been a game changer for me, just to be able to do those, extension exercises for the triceps consistently, because I already knew what was going to work. I just couldn't do it consistently, right? So I do a variation actually with bands, but it's basically the same idea. You're doing that same motion just to get blood into the elbow, and that's allowed me to do, kind of alternating incline French press, and then just lying tricep extensions. I kind of alternate just as the feeling takes me, but I've been progressing both of those. Those have both moved a lot, and my triceps have blown up as a result. But it's the warm up and switching to an easy bar. The Bell's Steel Easy Bar really is a lot easier on my elbows. It lets me find a groove where I can avoid elbow strain on those and just progress them consistently. So a big factor there was just being able to do those movements with some full stretch on the tricep, with good weight, good intensity, consistently. I've also been doing full stretch dips, so all the way down, like full stretch to the bottom. That's actually been doing a whole lot for my triceps as well, so they've been blowing up recently. Moving on down to the forearms, the best exercises for me, they're really hard to do. These are both silver era exercises. The first is a dumbbell forearm curl that Chuck Sipes used. I just call them Chuck Sipes gooseneck wrist curls. There's a video, a very old video up on my channel. Basically, you have to brace your elbow up on something that's where your shoulder is lower than your elbow, and kind of maybe like a high bench or something, and then do wrist curls in this way. That really gets this kind of this interior meat. Very good exercise. You can go very heavy on it, and that's fantastic for hypertrophy. Even better is this variation that I got from an old article by Larry Scott. It's a barbell forearm curl, but the key, you'll find a very old video of me back when I had long hair doing these. You basically have to have you can't use normal bench. You have to have a little square platform that's pretty low to the ground so that you can actually sit down on the platform, get your hips below your elbows. I don't know what that does, but it reduces some strain on your wrist and just lets you get in a better position for it. Just look up the video. It's one of the first videos on my channel. I think I'm doing like 205, which is crazy. I mean, that blew my forearms up. But it's also very strenuous on the wrists, and it's going to be hard to do consistently. But that was definitely helpful. Some things that I will mention right now that I've been doing a lot of wrist work, just all the other motions the wrist does with like bands. I think I've got a video up on my Instagram, just doing the rotation and whatnot. That hasn't necessarily built a lot of muscle, but it's been super helpful for elbow health. So I've been able to push my biceps and triceps a little bit harder. But enough on that. That's not super key for hypertrophy. Just another little point on how I'm able to actually train the upper arms. Okay, enough on the arms. Okay, so now we're moving down to the legs. I guess we'll start with the glutes. Obviously built the base with squats. I mean, squats and deadlifts, but especially squats. Then I got into hip thrusts. They work. Hip thrusts definitely work, but I've actually seen even more growth now that I've gotten into Jefferson curls, fairly heavy, and Zercher deadlifts, because they're both extreme hinges. Especially the Jefferson curls, they really put a stretch on the glutes that you don't really get anywhere else, or it's hard to get anywhere else. So I've gotten, without even really trying, I've gotten even more growth recently just from that stretch. So if there are any females watching this, which I kind of doubt, but if there are, I might want to look into that. Let's not neglect the opposite side, hip flexors. Like I said, L-sits are helpful, but you also have to train the opposite side of it, kind of stretch that out. What's been really helpful for me is a movement that I got from Range of Strength, the early stance split squat, which is essentially sticking your front foot forward a lot while you're doing a split squat. Anyway, whatever. Like, you can find videos on that on Instagram. You probably don't care how to train your hip flexors anyway, but just adding that. Okay, yeah. As far as quads, started off with body weight lunges and then moved on to squats. I would say squats are the absolute majority of my quads came from squats. I haven't built that much sheer size recently, but I have built more definition. I've gotten a lot more like separation and definition, which I attribute to things like reverse Nordic, sissy squats, things of that nature that are more full stretch oriented. I've definitely noticed some definition. The measurement around the exact center is not necessarily, well, I think maybe a little bit bigger, not much, but most of the size was squats, but definitely I've gotten some definition from including some other stuff. Also with the squats, the adductors were huge. Squats were huge for that. Hamstrings. Again, initial hamstring work came from predominantly deadlifts. That was probably not nearly as much of a strong point at that time, but my hamstrings have absolutely blown up from Nordic curls. I mean, noticeable differences, Jefferson curls, and Romanian deadlifts. I mean, that triumvirate at a lot of times in the same workout, maybe start with Jefferson curls, go into Nordic curls, and finish with Romanians. Boom, major hamstring growth. Really great combination. Those three exercises will absolutely explode your hamstrings in a good way. Well, maybe in a bad way if you use too much weight too soon, especially on the Jefferson curl. Then you might have the wrong kind of explosion. I mean, like in terms of growth anyway. Cool. So now we're getting down to the calves finally. And I'm actually excited to talk about this because I actually have made some calf growth. For most of my training career, I had skinny calves, not the worst you'd ever seen, but not good. Fairly small. I think they were both, one was like 16 inches, one was a little below. So not the worst no calves you've ever seen, but definitely needed improvement. And I tried everything. I'd seen you're supposed to train them super heavy, tried that, no luck. I'd seen you're supposed to train them every single day, or every single day you train, I tried that, no luck. Nothing really worked until I found this combination, which is train your tibs, tibialis work, just train them hard, heavy. I think drop sets, intensity, you can train your tibs with a lot of intensity, a lot of stretch. Just like I use basically cinder blocks to do tib raises with weight stacked on them. I get a great stretch off that, just great intensity. I can do easy drop sets, but just tons of intensity on the tibs. That's made noticeable improvements to the front of my shins. They like just look bigger. And then I'll show you because I mean I don't have huge calves yet by any means, but I'm more of like a mid calf now. I don't have small calves certainly. See, you can see it's not gigantic, but you can see there's some shape to it, right? Looks at the very least, I would say we're kind of in the mid calf range. At least, it looks athletic, right? You can see a little bit of detail, a little veininess. Tibs are big in that image, especially from the front. But then for the actual calves, donkey calf raises are key because that lets you get a full stretch on it. That much more effective than standing. And then what I've done in replacement for seated calf raises, which I don't have a machine, I always thought they were pointless anyway, I never got anything out of them, is a barbell squatting calf raise where I just squat down to a full deep squat, put a barbell on my knees and do calf raises in that position. Those I get a ton out of because you're in a full stretch position there as well. I've got a video on my Instagram. It's probably pretty far back. I need to put one up on YouTube. I'll probably make a video on how I got my calves growing again. But anyway, that combination actually put a good bit of size on. Not like a ton in sheer measurement. I think I have one up to 17 and one's like slightly below 17. But in terms of appearance, it's night and day. Now, they still don't look big. I mean, I'm not a guy with big calves, but I would say look proportionate for me, or at least not small. And they look athletic, so it's it's been like a major visual difference from just kind of like not the smallest you've ever seen, but a little bit on the small side, just completely nondescript to like medium and athletic, like definitely an athletic look. So that's a very positive thing. And now, let's not forget the feet. I've been wearing Vibrams for 3 years now. My feet are stronger. I can move my toes better. I just feel better. Feet are stronger. Wear Vibrams when I can. That's cool. Okay, so I hope that answers your questions. I'm glad I finally got to this. To all the people who believed in me and believed that I was finally going to make this video and kept reminding me consistently, I really appreciate you guys, and I really hope you enjoy this. I hope you guys find this useful. Once again, if you want me to be more successful on YouTube, please do all the YouTube algorithm stuff, hit the bell, do all the other stuff, leave a comment, all that good stuff. All right, I appreciate you guys.